welcome to Inside the Taubman Approach. I'm your host, Benjamin Harding. And today we're diving into an inspiring conversation with the incredible Mary Moran. In this episode, we'll explore the teaching of the Taubman Approach to young children, how to make these foundational techniques accessible and engaging for the youngest of pianists. Mary, with her decades of experience, will share valuable insights on new course and program development, offering guidance for piano teachers looking to integrate the Taubman approach into their private studios. We'll also take a fascinating look at the evolution of the Taubman work through the years, highlighting the pivotal moments and innovations that have shaped its impact on piano pedagogy. Whether you're a teacher, a student, or simply passionate about the piano, there's something here for everyone. So grab your headphones and let's get started. Mary Moran, welcome to Inside the Taubman Approach.
Thank you, Benjamin. It's good to be with you.
Could you discuss your initial experience with this incredible work?
Sure. Actually, I was at the first Taubman Institute, which was held in Rensselaerville, New York, which is about 35 miles from where I live. So I received a brochure in the mail about the work. My best friend at the time and I decided to go. We played a lot of two-piano music, and so we decided to commute to Rensselaerville every day. And we were so excited with everything that we saw. Mrs. Taubman was lecturing then, and there were concerts every night, and all of her students performed. And in addition to being totally wowed by the technical information and hearing her speak about her work and hearing her do master classes every day, we also were really so impressed with the musicality of all her students, who did not all sound the same. They each had their own personality in their playing, and that was one thing that really struck us. And we were sold.
Wow. You were sold. And since that first year of the Institute, did you go back every year? Was there like a break in between?
No, I went to every institute that was ever held. From that was the Taubman Institute, and when it became the Golandsky Institute.
Amazing, amazing. So when did the Institute move to Amherst?
The second year.
The second year.
Yeah, the first year it was very difficult. I guess I wasn't. I didn't live there, but I think they had to have pianos in the bedrooms. Because there were not spaces for practicing. So it was a very difficult place to get to. So I think they found Amherst College was much better, more centrally located. And so I went to that one too after that.
And so you began to participate as a student.
Yes.
How did your relationship with Mrs. Taubman and Edna Golandsky, how did that come about? You know, that kind of firsthand encounter.
Yeah, I first studied with a student of Mrs. Taubman's who lived closer to where I live, and Robert Mumper, and he was a great teacher, and he was helpful, but I had little aches and pains and problems that he wasn't able to solve. Now, in the summers, I actually lived with Mrs. Taubman in the Berkshires and studied with her. And so I had lessons with her then, and then I would go back to Robert. And it just ended up that I knew I needed to move and I went to Edna. And that was my dream come true, to study with Edna, you know.
Oh, my goodness. So you were really, of course, really close with both Dorothy Taubman and Edna Golandsky. what kinds of insights did you gain in those initial kind of encounters with Dorothy Taubman, let's say?
Well, living with her, I studied with her. I had a lesson every week. And of course, that was just amazing. But also living with her, and since I was teaching mainly children, she began her career teaching children. So, we would go for walks. We would go out in a rowboat that we had on the lake. And we would just, I would just ask her questions about teaching and when she taught children and what she thought was important. And it was very enlightening. And also at the
Yeah, I
time,
can't imagine those conversations must have been so enlightening and so inspiring. Oh my goodness.
right. And one thing that she always said to me was it was most important first for the rhythm to be perfect, because she said that way people don't know if it's a child or an adult playing if the rhythm is perfect. And what I have found since in my teaching is that if the rhythm is perfect, the body can line up better around that than if the rhythm isn't perfect, then the body doesn't know when to do what you're trying to teach it to do. So having that rhythm be perfect was just a huge clue to getting people to do the work.
That's amazing. And correct me if I'm wrong. I've heard over the years, it was either Mrs. Taubman or somebody involved in the Taubman work that said, we want to sort of understand what's happening at the prodigy level, and how does that kind of translate to somebody like me, who is not a prodigy, who is not, not a particular genius, but somebody that loves the piano and wants to play the piano well. Was it Dorothy Taubman who just kind of looked at a prodigy and said, hey, everybody can do that if they're taught the right motions and taught the right concepts and things of that nature? Am I speaking out of turn here?
No, I think what she said was that if children who are prodigies could play this well, it meant that we don't need to develop muscles through these huge technical regimens where people think they have to build strength in their playing. She said these children do it naturally because they have the right combination, and it's just natural. And I think that that's what she meant about children like that. And there is a lot of naturalness in a lot of children.
Right. And you've experienced that because, you are the preeminent expert in teaching the Taubman approach to children. And did that desire and passion come as a result of those conversations with Dorothy in the Berkshires, or was that something that kind of just gradually became something that was of interest to you? Where did that come from?
Well, I always gravitated towards teaching children. I taught for the Yamaha Music School, which had a group program for 4 to 7-year-olds, I think. And then when the students finished that, they would go into private lessons. And you could see from that group lesson, and they had keyboards to play, you could see who was natural. Probably now that I do what I do now, I know that I could see who was aligned, whose alignment was good, who was put together so that they moved in one piece, so that they could really take the work well. So it was really nice for me as a private teacher. I could take the students that I felt I could work with and work with them. And then when I started learning about the Taubman approach and teaching it and started putting things in, that really helped. Although it took a while for me to really understand how to break it down, because,
Yes.
It just did for me to figure out exactly how to get in there with any child. You know what I mean?
Well, yes, absolutely. It's so exciting to many of our listeners listening to you because many of our studios are filled up with younger children, that, we have this desire to pass on this incredible work to children in our studios. And it's so exciting to see your book available, and all of the resources that, of course, we have at the Golandsky Institute, and the streaming service, and all of your work there. Where are you really excited right now as you're entering into a new season of teaching here, starting up in the fall? Where are you really excited in terms of developing that work for piano teachers to understand, hey, how do I apply this to younger children?
Well, I'm hoping this year to put together, actually with your help, a course for teachers to take, and help them to apply this in the way that I've learned. There is my book, which is very helpful, but it doesn't go far enough, I think, and it doesn't show you all the things that can go off, how to keep the students right on task with everything that you're doing. So I do have a few teachers that I work with for their lessons, and I see their students monthly. And from that, I've really learned more what can go wrong, so you can look out for it in teaching it. And so in the first job, usually for most students, is getting them in one piece, getting the playing apparatus so the finger, hand, and forearm work together. And if you don't have that, nothing else that you do is going to be helpful. You can't rotate a broken, into two pieces forearm. You've got to have the student learn to move in one piece. And I think that getting that alignment, which comes from the correct seating, the correct height, and then learning how to move in one piece, that's a huge part of it. Sometimes I get students who come all in one piece, and it's so easy then, because you can say, oh, just turn your arm like that and play that note, and they can do it. But if you're not in one piece, it's very tricky. And I think that that's what the course could teach people as that first basic thing for the students. And then we can go on to, single and double rotation, crossings, leaps, all of that, in and out. And, I have a really good way of teaching in and out also that seems to work pretty well. I mean, I'm not saying it's 100%, but it works well. So
absolutely. No, you're so gracious and humble with it. It does work well. And I'm so excited about the pieces and sort of the graded repertoire, the graded skill that is applied in your work, taking into account that, children learn differently than adults, and there's learning psychology built into it as well. You have lots of games, for example, in your studio. Could you talk a little bit about the games that are happening in the Mary Moran studio on a weekly basis? They're so fun.
Well, I don't know. I make things up as I go along. So I make things into a game, but I don't have any particular games. Do you know what I mean? I have I don't know anything specific to tell you.
Specific, yeah, sure. But it's a ton of fun, though.
It is fun. You have to think it's fun. And I'm from a big family, and I'm the oldest daughter. So I really had a lot of experience with younger siblings and trying to get them to do what I wanted them to do. So that's basically what we're doing when we're teaching. We're trying to get the kids to do what we want them to do, because they're not coming in thinking, oh, I want to do, they want to play the piano, but they may not care if they're in one piece, or they may not care about any of the things that we're talking about. So with some of them, I tell them that I want to take their pictures in case I write another book. And then they try to really do what I want them to do so they can be in my new book, which I haven't had to write. So I just, take things off the top of my head like that. Or, we'll have a contest to see, like, who can go up and down in one piece the best. And,
That's right.
when we have performance classes, which I have like every 2 months, they watch each other and they'll say, oh, his wrist looked really good. It didn't get too low and it didn't get too high. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
they know what to look for.
They're engaged at an age appropriate level.
Right. Well, I do think also one thing, and I learned this from Edna, because when my older son was young and she and her family were here, she would just work with him a little bit for me. And she always treats her students with such respect. And it was really, it's not like teaching, like talking down to a child. It's really treating them with respect. And I think when I talk to my students and I'll say, how does that feel? Like if we're trying to get the right height and talking about being, I'll say, do you feel like you're on top of the keys when you're sitting like this? And they'll say, I don't know. And, and I might say, well, it's your body. So you're the only one who's going to know that. I'm not going to know that. I can tell you what it looks like, but you know how it feels. And they get a good sense of how that is. And you can see a little bit of pride coming through because they're feeling, I'm in charge of this. Or, is this the right height for you? I try to start from neutral all the time. So they have to constantly every week come in and feel if it's right or not. And if they say, oh, I only sit on 2 of those pads, I might say, oh, I thought you sat on 3. Let's try that first, just so they can re-feel it again. So everything is I'm trying to develop their sense of their feeling.
That issue of kinesthetic awareness is so key and so powerful in bringing sort of self-awareness to
Right.
a younger person. I mean, my goodness, in this world of total chaos and just wow, that is powerful. That
It
is
is.
powerful.
And when you have a transfer student sometimes and ask them a question like that, how do you feel when you play the piano? They might look at you like you're crazy because nobody's ever asked them. They said, well, I just play. I don't know how I feel. I'm thinking about this. Well, and I'd say, well, we're going to start exploring. How do you feel? And I think one thing that Edna had always says in her lectures are, if your hand and you stretch it and you feel it away from the keyboard and you feel that, and then you see them doing that movement at the piano, then you can say, well, let's take that movement you just did away from the piano. Because if it feels stretchy in life, when you do that to your hands, it's going to feel stretchy at the piano. So all the feelings are the same in life as they are in the piano. If you're twisting your hand in life and you hold it twisted, after a while, it's going to feel really tense. And if you twist it when you're playing the piano, it'll feel tense. So taking the movement into your life and just doing it without the piano can help them become aware of how they feel.
You're not only a master pedagogue, you're also a master musician and player. How has the Taubman approach opened up doors of performance for you and artistic expression for yourself?
Well, it's been wonderful because I was a limited pianist. I don't think I felt that I had a lot of pain, even though as I worked, I could see any of the body aches that I had were pretty much from my playing. But before I thought they were just general. You know what I mean? I just thought,
Yes, right.
yeah,
Just kind of come and go, whatever. Yeah.
I didn't think about it at all. But I just didn't dream of having the kind of tools that I have now to look at music, to decipher it, to learn it quickly, and to know how to move. To have this alignment that works so well. So that, when I play a Chopin ballade or scherzo, or, the Franck Sonata when I accompany a violinist or a flutist, it's just a thrill for me because I never thought I would be able to do that and do it comfortably.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And yeah, the Taubman approach not only has changed our teaching or your teaching life, and through you, our lives. Your playing is just marvelous, and to be able to say after all these years, wow, there's such freedom and joy and artistic expression to be discovered even now.
Oh, right. I think if I ever retire, what I want to do is just practice.
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic, right?
Right. Just to have more time to do that for yourself. I mean, that's my earliest memory is watching someone play the piano and thinking, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. I want to make those sounds.
Oh wow, that is lovely.
And
That
I
is
feel
absolutely.
like being able to help, my high school students, when I have a student right now playing the G minor ballade, and when I'm listening to him play, I'm just so thrilled that I can make it that easy for him, that he can just tear through the coda, and he does,
Oh,
and it's just to be able to help somebody reach that is amazing.
it is, and with such ease and brilliance and virtuosity, amazing. How has the work progressed in the time that you have been involved with the Taubman approach? How have you seen it change, be refined? Um, yeah, what are kind of some of your observations in looking at the work these many years?
Well, the work itself, I think, has become much more efficient and streamlined.
Yes.
I feel like when I started, everyone had the experience that they had. It was mostly Edna and Mrs. Taubman and Mrs. Taubman's other students that were teaching. And at first, I wasn't teaching, I was just a student. And I could see there was a big difference in the different teachers, and some knew more what to do than others did at those first few seminars,
Yeah.
institutes. But what's happened is the work has become more refined. Everybody's teaching got better. Edna took over the lecturing, and her lecturing is so crystal clear. I always think of it this way. Mrs. Taubman was a genius, and she just discovered all of this. So to her, she didn't really have to learn it. It came through her, kind of like Mozart
Yeah.
composing, But I feel like with Edna, she studied it and learned it. When Mrs. Taubman said to her, Edna, you have to give the lectures.
Right.
And that was such a huge, burden and gift for Edna at that time. So then Edna started and she really studied, and it came through so clearly because she was studying it and giving it out. So I feel like the organization of it and the logic of it to me became much clearer as one of the people listening. And so I saw that, and then through that, and Edna becoming really the head of it with Mrs. Taubman, the work became refined. The movements became smaller. They weren't all these great big rotations, but maybe sometimes, they became more specific to what you needed to do, to the person that's retraining, specific to the passage, like that. Like we started learning that as I got on the faculty. Then we had these faculty meetings, and Mrs. Taubman would work with people's students. You would see that kind of work. And then like the in and out became much more specific. And now we don't teach it big. We always try to teach it to the specific size it should be. The shaping, Edna kind of saw into the shaping so that it's just so much clearer now what shapes should be and how to do that. Where some of the things it's hard to be specific, but in almost every part of it, it became much more specific. And I think that Edna lecturing and her feeling as Bob and John and I did also, that we needed to train teachers to do this so that everyone could be more on the same page. Everyone could learn the same set of things to do. I think that all helped kind of standardize it more and make it much more clear, much more effective now than it was. But I think it took it took many years of kind of learning, everybody teaching, especially Edna and Taubman, teaching a lot of different students so you could make more generalities about things. Because Mrs. Taubman told me she first thought there was only rotation. And she said, and then I would be showing someone the rotation and it didn't look right. And she'd think, oh, they need to move in here. Then she learned maybe there's in and out. And then she had such a perfect little hand. And so Mrs. Taubman herself did. And so then maybe she was teaching the scale and somebody's thumb didn't go behind the finger that was playing, going into the cross thing. And then she thought, oh, the arm has to move over here, the walking arm. So she said everything that she came up with came because somebody didn't do something. And she would compare it to herself and see what they needed to do. So,
amazing.
So that as that process went on and people have come to us with even more complicated problems, maybe, there've been other discoveries, like in the shaping or in that the in and out has to be so precise or whatever. But it all comes because someone had an issue that helped lead us there.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And the foundation was laid by Mrs. Taubman and Edna Golandsky. And throughout the years, it's been refined in the Institute and now in the Golandsky Institute. Mm-hmm. What are you excited about for the future of the Golandsky Institute and your work in particular? We talked a little bit about helping piano teachers in their various studios in applying the Taubman approach specifically with young children. And what else is exciting to you as the Golandsky Institute begins to reach more people and have more of an impact in the piano pedagogical world?
Well, just having more people understand it and play freely and in a coordinate way is really our dream for all of us. And I think now that we're so much in this computer age since COVID, I think we're reaching more and more people through video lessons. People give Zoom lessons and Skype lessons. And private lessons are the best thing to do. Yes. But if you do a mixture, you can really work with people in different places and get different, and help enlighten them and help them grow. It's really such a pleasure to work with teachers in Australia or work with a teacher in Hong Kong, work with teachers in California, and just see them and see the progress they can make. And with overhead cameras and side cameras and everything, we're just really lucky to be in this age when this can happen. And I think we can have more courses and reach more people if we know what they need and what they want, and we start learning more and more how to apply technology to it, so that traveling and having to stay places doesn't become such a barrier as it was before. When we had our institute at Princeton, it would be people flying in from all over the world. Then they'd have to get a place to stay. Then they had to eat. Then they had to pay the tuition to go. And it just was overwhelming. And we had to rent cameras and I don't know if you ever saw our setup. We rented televisions, and we would have three or four cameramen, focusing on different angles and the televisions and broadcasting all the different views of the hand there. And now everybody can do a lot of that from home just with the overheads on here. So even though it isn't as wonderful as being all together, it does have so many advantages to be able to do some of our work this way. So I think that as we use the technology we have in the future and combine it with in-person sessions, the sky's the limit.
Agreed. And you can go, dear listener, to GolandskyInstitute.org and see all of the resources that we have for you. Mary, Bob, John, and Edna have created the Golandsky Institute to help pianists and to help people and to make an impact into people's lives. And this work through Mary Moran has impacted thousands of people all over the world. And it's just so exciting to speak with you, Mary, on this podcast episode. What an honor. And we're going to be talking more, I'm sure, on the podcast in episodes to come, just to check in and hear what's going on with the course development and with ideas related to helping children and teachers of children with the Taubman Approach. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to be with you, Benjamin. Anytime. Thank you.